Dr. Hejin stared at her reflection in the transport pod's window as it descended toward Earth's surface. Her pale blue skin looked even more striking against the backdrop of puffy white clouds. She adjusted her medical coat for the 10th time, making sure the golden pins of the Solarian Medical Academy caught the light properly. These humans needed to understand the level of expertise they were getting. The landing pad came into view, a simple concrete structure attached to a sprawling medical complex. Hejin couldn't help but frown. On her home planet, medical facilities floated gracefully in the sky, their crystal spires reaching toward the stars. This squat, earth-bound building looked primitive. "Welcome to Earth United Medical Center," the transport's AI announced. "Current local time is 9:30 a.m. Temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. Hejin gathered her equipment case, which contained some of the most advanced healing technology in the galaxy. The case alone cost more than what a human doctor made in 5 years. She stepped out of the pod, her boots touching Earth's surface for the first time. A small group waited for her. At the front stood Director Kim Ji, her dark hair streaked with silver, wearing what Hejin assumed was formal human medical attire. Next to her stood a tall human male in light blue scrubs. His presence caught Hejin off guard. There was something warm about his expression that made her second heart skip a beat. "Dr. Hejin." Director Kim Ji bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Director Kim Ji. And this is Dr. Teo, one of our senior trauma surgeons." Teo stepped forward with a smile. "It's an honor to meet you, Doctor. We've heard amazing things about Solarian healing technology." Hejin noticed he had extended his hand toward her. She had read about this human custom of handshaking, but hadn't expected to encounter it so soon. With slight hesitation, she reached out. The moment their hands touched, she felt an unexpected warmth spread up her arm. How strange. Human body temperature wasn't that different from Solarian. "Let me show you to your department," Director Kim Ji said, leading the way inside. "We've set up the wing according to Solarian specifications." As they walked through the halls, Hejin observed the facility with growing concern. Everywhere she looked, she saw human medical staff touching patients, holding hands, patting shoulders, even hugging in some cases. It seemed so unsanitary, so unnecessary. They passed an emergency room where a young human doctor was treating a child with a broken arm. Instead of using proper pain suppression fields, the doctor was simply holding the child's hand and speaking softly while another staff member set the bone. To Hejin's surprise, the child wasn't screaming or thrashing as her medical training had led her to expect. Instead, the little one seemed almost calm. "Something wrong, Dr. Hejin?" Teo asked, noticing her stare. "Why isn't that doctor using proper pain management technology?" she asked, trying to keep the judgment out of her voice. Teo's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Sometimes the best technology is right here," he said, holding up his hand. "Human touch has healing properties that can't be replicated by machines." Hejin barely held back a scoff. Healing properties, in simple physical contact. It was exactly this kind of primitive thinking that had motivated her to accept this assignment. These humans clearly needed to be shown a better way. They reached her department, a gleaming section of the hospital filled with the latest Solarian medical equipment. At least this looked civilized. Her team would work here, showing humans how real medical care should be performed. "Your first patients are scheduled for tomorrow morning," Director Kim Ji said. "Dr. Teo will be your liaison for any questions about human physiology or our medical practices." "I study human medicine extensively," Hejin replied quickly. "I doubt I'll need much assistance." Teo's smile didn't fade. "Even so, I look forward to working together. Sometimes the best discoveries come from unexpected places." As they left her to settle in, Hejin began unpacking her equipment. She had trained for years to become one of the youngest head healers in Solarian history. She would show these humans what real medical science looked like. No more of this touching and holding hands nonsense. Yet as she worked, she found herself absently rubbing her right hand, the one Tayo had shaken. The warmth from that simple contact seemed to linger, like an echo she couldn't quite forget. What a ridiculous thought! She shook her head and focused on calibrating her bioresonance scanner. She had work to do, and she would do it the proper way, the Silurian way. Little did she know, her entire understanding of healing was about to change. He-Jin's first week at Earth United Medical Center was not going as planned. She sat in Director Kim Ji's office, her data pad displaying yet another patient transfer request. This was the 5th one today. They want to switch to the human medical wing, He-Jin said, her voice tight with frustration. I don't understand. Our healing technology is perfect. The recovery rates are exactly as predicted. Director Kim Ji folded her hands on her desk. Perhaps that's the problem. Dr. He-Jin. Humans don't always want perfect. They want to feel cared for. But we do care. Our machines monitor every cell in their bodies. He-Jin's antenna twitched in agitation, their blue glow becoming brighter, a sure sign of Silurian stress. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Tayo entered, carrying 2 cups of something that smelled strange but oddly pleasant. I brought coffee, he said, setting 1 cup in front of He-Jin. I noticed you seemed interested in it during yesterday's staff meeting. He-Jin stared at the cup. She hadn't said anything about coffee. How had he known? More importantly, why did this small gesture make her feel better? We have a situation in emergency, Tayo continued. Would you mind helping out, Dr. He-Jin? Some of the patients are showing unusual readings on your equipment. In the emergency department, He-Jin found 3 patients from a hover car accident. Her scanners showed their injuries clearly, simple bone breaks and tissue damage. But something was wrong with the readings. Their pain levels don't match the injury severity, she muttered, tapping her scanner in frustration. And their stress hormones are far too low for trauma patients. She looked up to see Tayo sitting beside one of the patients, an elderly man with a broken leg. The doctor wasn't using any equipment. He was just talking to the man while holding his hand. My wife loves gardening too, Tayo was saying. What kind of flowers does yours grow? The patient smiled, launching into a story about roses. He-Jin checked her scanner again. As the man talked, his pain indicators were dropping steadily. This doesn't make sense, she said. You're not using any pain management technology. Tayo glanced up. Come here, he said. Try something with me. He-Jin hesitated but moved closer. Tayo gently took her hand and placed it on the patient's shoulder. Just keep it there, he said. Mr. Lee, why don't you tell Dr. He-Jin about those blue roses your wife created? The touch of human skin felt strange under her fingers, warm and slightly rough. But as the old man talked excitedly about his wife's flower breeding program, He-Jin's scanner showed something remarkable. The patient's healing rate was increasing. Cell regeneration was accelerating, and her own readings. She pulled her hand back quickly. I need to check something in my lab. Back in her office, He-Jin reviewed the data. During those few minutes of contact, both she and the patient had shown increased levels of chemicals her people called healing factors. How was this possible without any technology? Her door chimed. Come in, she called, still staring at the readings. Brought you more coffee, Tayo said. You left the first one untouched. How do you do it? She asked suddenly. How do you know what patients need without scanners? He sat down across from her. We observe. We listen. When my mother was sick, no medicine helped her pain. But when I held her hand and talked about happy memories, she could sleep. But that's not scientific, He-Jin protested weakly. Isn't it? Tayo smiled. Your own scans showed the changes. Maybe instead of replacing human touch with technology, we could combine them. He-Jin looked at her expensive scanner, then at her own hand. The same hand that had felt the patient's pain levels drop. I need to run some tests, she said finally. Proper, controlled studies. Would you? Would you help me? Of course. Tayo's smile widened. But first, drink your coffee. It's getting cold. Hejin picked up the cup, noting how the warm ceramic felt against her fingers. She had never paid attention to physical sensations like this before. As she took a sip, she realized she had a lot to learn about healing, and maybe humans weren't as primitive as she had thought. Behind her, the scanner beeped, still recording data. The numbers told a story she was only beginning to understand, a story about the power of a simple touch. The emergency alert blared through Earth United Medical Center at 2:15 a.m. Hejin was in her lab, reviewing her recent touch healing research, when the lights turned red. Attention all medical staff. Director Kim Ji's voice came over the speakers. There's been an explosion at the quantum research facility. Multiple casualties incoming. All hands on deck. Hejin grabbed her medical kit and rushed to the emergency bay. She found Tayo already there, helping staff prepare beds and equipment. How bad? She asked. Very, he replied, his usual smile gone. The explosion released quantum particles. We don't know how it will affect our equipment. The first wave of patients arrived within minutes. Humans and aliens filled every bed, many covered in strange, shimmering burns that seemed to shift in and out of reality. Hejin activated her most advanced scanner. The screen flickered and went dark. She tried again. Nothing. The quantum interference is affecting all Silurian technology, a nurse reported. Nothing's working. Hejin felt panic rise in her chest. Without her equipment, how could she heal anyone? She watched as Tayo moved from patient to patient, using simple tools and his hands to check vital signs. Hejin, he called. I need you here. She rushed to his side. A young human woman lay on the bed, her body covered in quantum burns. Without scanners, Hejin couldn't see the extent of the damage. What do I do? She asked, her antenna glowing bright with stress. Feel her pulse, Tayo instructed. Put your hand here, on her wrist. Hejin placed her fingers where he showed her. At first, she felt nothing. Then, there it was, a steady beating, but too fast. Good, Tayo said. Now put your other hand on her forehead. Tell me if she feels too hot. The woman's skin burned against Hejin's touch. Her temperature is dangerously high, she said. Trust your instincts, Tayo told her as he prepared a cooling pack. Your people were healers long before you had advanced technology, weren't they? Hejin remembered her history lessons. Centuries ago, Silurians had used touch to heal, before machines made it unnecessary. Those old techniques were still in their medical texts, even if no one used them anymore. More patients arrived. With her equipment useless, Hejin had no choice but to work like the humans. She felt for pulses, checked temperatures with her hands, listened to breathing with a simple stethoscope. Hours passed in a blur. Hejin found herself working in perfect sync with Tayo. When he needed supplies, she had them ready. When she struggled to find a vein for an injection, his hands guided hers to the right spot. Doctor, a nurse called out. The quantum burn victims, their burns are changing. Hejin rushed to check. The strange shimmer had spread, but something else was happening. Wherever the medical staff had touched the patients, checking pulses, giving comfort, applying bandages, the burns were healing faster. Tayo, she called. Look at this. He joined her, examining the partially healed burns. The human touch, it's stabilizing the quantum energy somehow. Hejin remembered her research from the past week. The healing factors in our bodies, they must be affecting the quantum particles. Working together, they developed a new treatment. Human and Silurian medical staff took turns maintaining physical contact with the burn victims while applying traditional medicines. The results were amazing. The burns stabilized and began to heal. As the crisis slowly came under control, Hejin found herself sitting beside the first patient she had treated. The young woman was sleeping peacefully now, her burns almost gone. Hejin still held her hand, monitoring her pulse out of habit. "You did well today," Teo said, bringing her a cup of coffee. It had become their tradition. "I didn't do anything special," He-Jin replied. "I just touched them, like humans do." And that was exactly what they needed. He sat beside her. Sometimes the oldest methods are the best ones. He-Jin looked at her useless scanner, then at her hands. These simple tools of flesh and bone had saved lives today. She had felt every heartbeat, every fever, every sign of healing. For the first time, she understood healing as more than just numbers and data. "We should document this," she said. "The combination of quantum burns and touch healing. It could be important." Teo smiled. "Already started the paperwork. Though I think you might want to add your own observations. After all, you're the expert on touch healing now." He-Jin looked at him in surprise, then found herself smiling too. Maybe she was. 2 weeks after the quantum accident, He-Jin's lab had changed completely. Gone were the neat rows of automated scanners. Instead, examination beds filled the room, each equipped with both human and Silurian monitoring devices. She sat at her desk, reviewing the latest test results. The numbers on her screen told an amazing story. During the quantum accident, she had started recording data using her backup sensors. These simple devices had captured something extraordinary. "Look at this," she said as Tayo entered with their morning coffee. She pointed to a graph on her screen. "When human medical staff touch patients, both bodies create a kind of healing field. It's similar to our bioresonance technology, but different." Tayo set down her coffee and leaned closer to look. His shoulder brushed against hers, and He-Jin's sensors immediately beeped. Both their healing factors had just increased. "See," she showed him the new readings. "It happens every time. Human touch triggers something in both bodies, something that makes healing happen faster." "Have you tested it with other species?" Tayo asked. "Yes. Look here." She pulled up more data. "Humans create the strongest effect. When I touch patients, there's a reaction, but it's weaker. It's like humans evolved to heal through touch." He-Jin took a sip of her coffee, remembering how strange it had felt when Tayo first brought her a cup. Now it was part of their daily routine, just like how touching patients had become normal for her. "I want to try something," she said. "Would you help me with an experiment?" Tayo agreed, and they set up the sensors. He-Jin had him hold hands with different patients while she recorded the data. Then she did the same. The results were clear. Human touch created healing effects that even the best Silurian technology couldn't match. But why? She wondered out loud, staring at the readings. Why did humans keep this ability while my people lost it? "Maybe because we had to," Tayo suggested. "Your people developed advanced technology early in your history. We had to rely on each other longer." Before He-Jin could respond, her computer chimed. She had received a message from the Solarian Medical Board. As she read it, her antenna began to glow with worry. "What's wrong?" Tayo asked. "They've heard about my research," she said. "Some board members are concerned. They say I'm going backward, returning to primitive methods. They want me to stop." Tayo frowned. "But your results prove this works. The quantum burn patients recovered twice as fast with combined treatment. That's the problem." He-Jin stood up and paced the room. "If I'm right, it means centuries of Silurian medical development went in the wrong direction. We replaced something valuable with machines." She stopped at one of the examination beds, running her hand along its surface. She remembered how helpless she had felt during the quantum accident when her technology failed. But her hands had not failed her. "I won't stop," she decided. "This is too important. But I need more proof." "Then let's get it," Tayo said. "We can design better tests, gather more data, show them evidence they can't ignore." He-Jin looked at him, feeling grateful for his support. Her sensors beeped again, showing elevated healing factors in both of them. She had stopped being surprised by these readings. There's something else, she said, pulling up a new file on her computer. I've been scanning my own brain patterns during these experiments. Every time I work with patients directly, touch them, help them, my brain chemistry changes. I'm developing new neural pathways. Like my brain is learning how to heal the old way again. You're evolving, Teo said softly. We all could, He-Jin replied. If we remember how to connect, how to touch. She stopped, realizing how much she had changed. The He-Jin who had first arrived on Earth would never have said such things. Her computer chimed again, another message from the medical board. They wanted her preliminary results immediately. Help me write the report, she asked Teo. I need to explain this in a way they'll understand. He sat down beside her, close enough that their arms touched. Her sensors beeped once more, but she didn't need them to know that something special happened when humans made contact. She had felt it herself, and no one could tell her it wasn't real. They had work to do, and this time, she would use both science and touch to prove her point. The Solarian medical ship landed at Earth United Medical Center early in the morning. He-Jin watched from the window as 3 tall figures stepped out, their blue skin darker than hers, marking them as older and more senior. The board members are here, she said to Teo, who stood beside her. Chief Medical Officer Yunwoo himself came. Is that bad? Teo asked, noting how her antenna had started glowing brightly with stress. Very. He hasn't left the homeworld in 50 years. He-Jin straightened her coat. He only travels when he thinks something is seriously wrong. They went to meet the delegation in the conference room. Director Kim-ji was already there, greeting the visitors. Chief Yunwoo towered over everyone, his antenna glowing a steady, stern red. Dr. He-Jin, he said, his voice deep and disapproving. We have reviewed your preliminary report on human touch healing. Your findings are disturbing. Sir, I can explain. He-Jin started. You claim that primitive physical contact creates better healing results than our advanced technology, he interrupted. Do you understand how this makes our medical community look? With respect, sir, Teo stepped forward. The results speak for themselves. We have data from hundreds of cases. Chief Yunwoo turned to look at Teo as if just noticing him. Ah yes, the human doctor who encouraged this regression. Tell me, do you enjoy watching our finest healer abandon centuries of progress? He-Jin felt anger rise in her chest. Dr. Teo helped me discover something important, she said firmly. We're not abandoning technology. We're combining it with natural healing abilities that all species share. Show us, said one of the other board members, Dr. Namil. Prove these claims. Right now, He-Jin asked. Yes. We have brought 3 patients from the homeworld. Each has a different ailment. Treat them your way, and we will measure the results. He-Jin looked at Teo, who nodded encouragingly. We'll need both human and Solarian monitoring equipment, she said. An hour later, they gathered in He-Jin's lab. 3 Solarian patients lay on beds, their ailments similar to the quantum burn cases, conditions that resisted traditional treatment. First, I'll show you our standard method, He-Jin said. She activated her bioresonance scanner and began treating the first patient. The reading showed normal healing rates. Then she put the scanner down and placed her hands on the patient's temples, just as Teo had taught her. The patient's eyes widened in shock at the touch. Watch the monitors, she said. Both human and Solarian equipment showed a sudden spike in healing factors. The patient's pain levels dropped faster than with technology alone. This is just the beginning, He-Jin continued. Dr. Teo, would you help me demonstrate the combined approach? Together, they worked on the second patient, using both touch healing and Solarian technology. The results were even better. The patient's recovery rate doubled. Impossible, Chief Yunwoo muttered, staring at the readings. No, natural, He-Jin corrected. Our bodies remember how to heal through touch. We just forgot because machines made it easier not to connect. She showed them her brain scans next. how her neural pathways had changed since learning touch healing. Then she displayed the data from the quantum accident, proving how touch had saved lives when technology failed. But what happens when the healer gets tired? Dr. Namil asked. Machines don't need rest. That's why we combine both methods, Teo explained. We use technology to help us work longer and monitor progress, but we don't let it replace human connection. Chief Yunwu stood silently for a long time, watching as Hejin and Teo continued treating the patients. Finally, he spoke. You understand this challenges everything we believe about medical progress? He asked Hejin. Yes, she replied. But progress isn't always about replacing the old with the new. Sometimes it's about remembering what we lost and bringing it back in a better way. The chief's antenna changed color slowly from red to a thoughtful blue. The board will need time to discuss this, but he paused, looking at the recovering patients. Perhaps we have been too quick to dismiss old methods. As the delegation left to confer, Teo touched Hejin's shoulder gently. Her sensors showed both their healing factors rise at the contact. You did it, he said. We did it, she corrected. But this is just the beginning. They'll want more proof, more tests. Then we'll give them proof, Teo smiled. One touch at a time. The emergency call came while the Solarian Medical Board was still debating Hejin's research. An important diplomatic transport had crashed near the medical center. Among the injured was Ambassador Gaiseok, a key figure in human-alien relations. Multiple internal injuries, Teo reported as they rushed to the emergency room. And he's got the same kind of quantum burns we saw in the accident last month. Hejin felt her heart's race. The ambassador's condition would draw attention from across the galaxy. Everything they did would be watched and recorded. Chief Yunwu appeared beside them. I will oversee this operation, he announced. Dr. Hejin, you will use standard Solarian protocols only. Sir, she protested, the quantum burns. This is not the time to experiment, he cut her off. They wheeled the ambassador into surgery. His body glowed with strange quantum energy, just like the previous victims. Hejin activated her bioresonance equipment, but the readings jumped wildly. The quantum interference is too strong, she reported. Standard treatment isn't working. The ambassador's vital signs began to drop. Warning alarms filled the room. Chief Yunwu tried another Solarian healing protocol, then another. Nothing helped. We're losing him, a nurse called out. Hejin looked at Teo across the operating table. He nodded slightly. Without asking permission, she shut down her equipment and placed her hands directly on the ambassador's chest. What are you doing? Chief Yunwu demanded. Saving his life, she replied. Dr. Teo, help me. Teo stepped forward and placed his hands next to hers. The moment they made contact with the patient, the quantum burns began to stabilize. Look at the monitors, Director Kimji said from the observation area. The human medical equipment showed the ambassador's vital signs improving. The Solarian sensors, when they could get readings through the quantum interference, confirmed it. The quantum energy is responding to their touch, Dr. Namil observed, just like in her research. Hejin concentrated on the feeling under her hands. She could sense the ambassador's heartbeats growing stronger. Beside her, Teo's steady presence helped her maintain focus. Traditional medicine now, she said. Nurses brought forward human medical supplies, simple but effective tools that wouldn't be affected by the quantum field. Together, Hejin and Teo worked to heal the ambassador's injuries. When they needed to check something, they used their hands instead of scanners. When they had to reduce pain, they combined gentle touch with basic medications. Hours passed. The whole room watched in amazement as the quantum burns faded and the ambassador's condition improved. Even Chief Yunwu stood silent, his antenna glowing with surprise. Finally, it was done. The ambassador was stable, his injuries healing normally. Hejin stepped back, suddenly tired but satisfied. Remarkable, Dr. Namil said, examining the patient. The quantum energy is completely neutralized. Even our best equipment can't do that. Chief Yanwu studied the medical readings carefully. The healing rate exceeded all known standards, he admitted. How did you know this would work? I didn't know, He Jin said honestly. But I'd learned to trust what I feel as much as what my machines tell me. And I trusted Dr. Teo. The chief's antenna changed color slowly, from skeptical red to thoughtful blue. Perhaps, he said carefully, there are some things our technology cannot replace. News of the ambassador's treatment spread quickly through the medical center. He Jin found herself explaining the procedure to a growing crowd of human and alien doctors. The key is connection, she told them. When we touch with the intention to heal, our bodies create a natural healing field. Combined with modern medicine, it's more powerful than either method alone. Later, in her lab, He Jin reviewed the operation data with Tao. The numbers proved what they had felt. Their combined approach had created unprecedented healing results. You took a big risk, Teo said, bringing her the coffee that had become their tradition. We took it together, she replied. And now we have proof that can't be ignored. She looked at her hands, then at the complex medical equipment around them. For the first time, she saw them not as opposite approaches, but as partners in healing. What happens now? Teo asked. He Jin smiled. Now we teach others. There are so many more discoveries to make about how touch and technology can work together. Outside her lab window, the sun was setting on another Earth day. But for He Jin, it felt like a new dawn in medical science, one that remembered the power of a simple human touch. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Medical Congress was packed with doctors from 100 different species. He Jin stood backstage, watching through a gap in the curtain as Chief Yanwu introduced their presentation. Are you nervous? Teo asked, standing beside her. A little, she admitted. I never thought I'd be here teaching aliens about human healing methods. After the ambassador's successful treatment, everything had happened quickly. The Solarian Medical Board not only approved their research, but insisted they share it with the galaxy's medical community. Now, 3 months later, they were about to present their findings to the biggest medical conference in known space. Remember, Teo said softly, just tell them what we learned. Show them what we felt. Chief Yanwu's voice boomed through the hall. I present Dr. He Jin of Solara and Dr. Teo of Earth, whose discovery is changing our understanding of medical science. They'd walked onto the stage together. He Jin looked out at the audience. Blue Silurian skin mixed with green Martian scales, silver Andromedan fur, and human faces of every color, all waiting to hear about the power of touch. 3 months ago, He Jin began. I believed technology was the only path to better healing. I was wrong. She showed them the data from their experiments. Charts and graphs appeared in the air above the stage, showing how human touch affected healing rates. The audience murmured with interest. But numbers tell only part of the story, she continued. Dr. Teo, would you help me demonstrate? They had planned this carefully. On stage, they showed exactly how they combined touch healing with advanced technology. Volunteer patients from different species came forward, and the audience watched in amazement as the combination of methods produced incredible results. Notice how the healing factors rise in both patient and healer, He Jin explained. This isn't just about the person being healed. It's about connection. A Martian doctor raised her hand. But surely this only works with humans. Their biology is unique. Actually, no, Teo answered. He displayed new data on the screens. We found that all species have this ability. It's just that humans never stopped using it. While the rest of us relied more and more on machines, He Jin added, humans kept touching, kept connecting. They preserved something precious that the rest of us forgot. She showed them her brain scans next, how learning touch healing had changed her neural patterns. We can relearn what we lost, she said. My own body is proof. The questions came quickly after that. Doctors from every world wanted to know more. How long did it take to learn? Could it be taught to any species? What were the best ways to combine it with existing technology? We're still learning ourselves, He-Jin told them honestly. But we've created a training program at Earth United Medical Center. Any doctor who wants to learn is welcome. As they finished their presentation, the hall erupted in applause. But the real excitement came afterward, when doctors crowded around them, asking to feel the healing touch for themselves. He-Jin watched as Tayo showed a group of Andromedan doctors how to check a pulse by hand. Nearby, a human nurse was teaching Solarian healers how to sense fever through touch. The sight made her antenna glow with joy. "You've started quite a revolution," Chief Yunwoo said, appearing beside her. His antenna glowed with approval, something she'd never seen before. "We all needed to remember," she replied. "Sometimes the oldest ways are the best teachers." Later, in their hotel room, He-Jin and Tayo celebrated with earth coffee and Solarian sweet cakes. Through the window, they could see the lights of the galaxy's greatest medical city spreading out below them. "Did you see the Martian doctor's face when she felt her first pulse?" Tayo asked, smiling. "Like she'd discovered a whole new world." He-Jin agreed, which, in a way, she had. She looked down at her hands. The same hands that had once only known how to operate machines. Now they could feel life itself, could help guide healing in ways her younger self would never have believed. "What do we do next?" she asked. Tayo reached out and touched her hand gently. As always, her sensors showed their healing factors rise at the contact. But she didn't need machines to tell her what she could feel. "We keep learning," he said, "and we keep teaching. After all, this is just the beginning." He-Jin nodded. The galaxy was remembering how to heal through touch, one doctor at a time. And she would help lead the way, with science in her mind and the power of human connection in her hands. Sarah walked through the quiet forest as the sun began to set. The trees were tall and old. Their leaves made a green roof over the path. Sarah heard the songs of birds and the gentle sound of a stream nearby. She felt at peace in nature, away from the busy city. As Sarah went further into the woods, the light faded. Shadows stretched across the ground. An owl hooted in the distance. Sarah knew she should head back soon. She did not want to get lost in the dark. Just then, Sarah saw a flicker of light off the path. Curious, she stepped closer to see what it was. To her surprise, she found a small cabin hidden among the trees. Warm light glowed from its windows. Smoke drifted up from the chimney. "What is this place?" Sarah wondered out loud. Who lives way out here in the middle of the forest? Part of Sarah wanted to knock on the door and find out, but another part of her felt it was best not to disturb whoever called this isolated cabin home. She looked at it for a long moment, then finally turned to go back the way she had come. The mystery of the cabin stayed in Sarah's mind as she followed the path out of the darkening forest. Perhaps she would come back another day and learn its secrets. For now, she was content to let it remain an intriguing discovery, a mysterious light in the deep woods, and a reminder that there was still magic to be found in the world for those who went looking for it. The next day, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious cabin in the woods. She decided to go back and see if she could learn more about it. Sarah told her friend Mark about her plan. "I found this strange little house hidden deep in the forest," she said. "I'm going to hike out there again today and see if anyone is home." Mark looked worried. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" he asked. "You don't know who or what might be out there. It could be dangerous." "I'll be careful," Sarah promised. "I just want to see if I can find out who lives there and why. Aren't you curious?" Mark shrugged. "A little, I guess, but I still think you should be cautious. Make sure you're back before dark, and take your cell phone in case you need help." Sarah agreed. She packed a small bag with water, snacks, and a flashlight. Then she drove to the trail and headed into the trees once more. The forest seemed different today. The air was heavy and still. Clouds blocked the sun, and the woods were full of shadows. Sarah walked quickly, eager to reach the cabin. After hiking for almost an hour, She reached the spot where she had first seen the light between the trees. Sarah stepped off the path and made her way toward the cabin. But when she reached the clearing, Sarah stopped in surprise. The cabin was gone. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. She was sure this was the right place, but no cabin stood among the trees. There was no sign anyone had ever been there. Sarah didn't know what to think. Had it all been a dream? Had she imagined the whole thing? She searched the woods for any clue, but found nothing. Feeling confused and a little afraid, Sarah hurried back to the path. The sun was setting as she walked out of the forest to her car. Sarah's mind was racing with questions. She couldn't explain what had happened, but she knew that her adventure was far from over. Sarah would have to return another day to unravel the mystery.